Hi everyone. So I'm back again. I'm back again with my friends at Enough is Enough Nigeria. This again is Call of Duty. I'm Tolu Adeleru-Balogun. Thank you so much. I look forward to all of you joining the conversation. And this is Call of Duty brought to you by Enough is Enough Nigeria, and they've been doing a great series on politics, on women in politics, social issues. So today we're talking about politics, and an issue of women in politics will of course definitely come up as well. But the main gist of this conversation today is about the Edo elections that have passed, electoral reforms that we're seeking, and of course also looking forward to the Ondo elections and any other elections that are coming up. So I do have a guest that's going to be joining me, so let me get the guests in here so that we can start the conversation. So thank you again for joining me. Hi, it's great to see you guys again. Thank you so much. All right, so we're looking forward to having Ariyo-Dare Atoye join us. He's popularly known. There he is. He's popularly known as Aristo. We're going to be having this conversation, and I look forward to it. Ariyo, how are you?
Very well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you. So this conversation is about Edo Decides, not specifically just that, but how it has repercussions and how it has consequences for conversations around elections here in Nigeria. Ariyo-Dare Atoye, he is a public speaker and a project manager, and one of those Nigerians who's very, very interested and involved in how to make the country better, especially as we're heading towards 60 years. Ariyo, can you believe Nigeria is going to be 60 years old? Does it feel like there's been 60 years of some kind of continuity, some kind of vision around what the Nigeria dream is?
Well, thank you, Tolu. Accept the fact that the grace of the Almighty God is sufficient. And we have hope. We have hope that even though a lot of things are wrong, that those of us who believe and have a passion for this country, and we're talking about good governance, will be able to do something that is actually remarkable, to be able to take this country out of, the current quagmire that it has found itself. Of course, the data about our nation speak for themselves. However, like I said, in all things, we have to give glory to God. We have to thank Him that our nation is 60. But I think this is a moment of reflection for us.
Yeah.
Reflection to look at the fact that after 60 years, we cannot compete with China, we cannot compete with South Korea, we cannot compete with Malaysia and Singapore, those who were at par. But all hope is not lost. With Tolu that is on the other side, with Ariyo that is on this side, including some of the people who have joined us, I believe that there is hope for our nation. We're having this conversation simply because we believe we are seeking an alternative to those things that have not worked, because we want this country to work. So all hope is not lost. We should thank God for the 60th anniversary of our independence, even though we are not yet independent. However, I think we have a lot on our hands going forward, so that even as we're questioning the set of 66 that are still ruling us, we should not allow our children to also question, in a few decades to come.
Okay, so I think that's a good way to start. We obviously know many people have been very vocal about the state of Nigeria, be it the elections, be it human indices that are being used and all those things. But elections are one of the very, very few things that constantly bring up controversy. And it's interesting that every single time we have elections, there is some manner of controversy around elections in Nigeria. We just can't vote and go home and believe that the process is free, the process is clear, the process is okay as it should be. So let's start with Edo elections. And it's interesting that with the Edo elections, the turnouts basically does mirror what we've seen as a national trend in the past 2 or 3 national elections. So the turnouts for the Edo Decides election was about 24.5%. And it was said that you had a turnout at least about 32.7% in the long run. So we've had elections. We had the 2019 elections, we had the 2015 elections, and before that, the 2011 elections, and we've been seeing a decline in voter participation. So it's not just Edo; it's on a national level. This decline of voters, registered voters in our election. So let's specifically start talking about Edo. What do you think led to the low turnout in Edo State particularly? And is there anything that we can use to juxtapose what we're seeing as also low participation numbers nationally in elections?
Thank you, Tolu. Two things. Number one, the aggregate of the reality of our nation in terms of issue of insecurity, in terms of issue of poverty, in terms of issue of governance, all of this, the aggregate of all of these will continue to affect our election, such that we continue to witness, voter apathy and decline in the number of Nigerians participating in our elections. It's not just only in Edo. We are going to see that Ondo too that is coming. That is number one issue, the aggregate of it. The number two thing that is also responsible, which is limited to Edo State, is the pre-election violence rhetoric and flashes of incidents of violence that were recorded prior to that very election. So what happened? There are two things that you can take away from this when you see violence rhetoric and you see incidents of election violence. One, it should spur, the security agencies to be able to be alive to their duty, to be probably proactive and take certain measures to be able to curtail, this incident real time on election day and post-election. We saw that reasonably and substantially. And for the first time in several years, our security agencies were commended in Edo because they acted in a way. And I think that the only thing that I never liked is the fact that the president making it to look as if that he is the one that was responsible for that. And a sort of an indictment that, look, I made it possible, meaning that you also didn't make it possible in Kogi where we witnessed, massive, looting and violence. Number two thing is this. The moment there is violence rhetoric ahead of any election, and you have seen the incident, and I want to thank the media for escalating a lot of incidents that happened prior to the election. So that's the consequence of this escalation by the media, which has the positive side of calling the attention of the security agencies to be alive to their duty and responsibility, also have its own demerit. So what is the demerit of it is the issue of voter apathy. So as this narrative that CSOs, NGOs, Nigerians, and the media, have been able or were able, to put up for security agencies to deal with, it also had its own consequence on the election in terms of voter apathy. So that's exactly what happened because of what we saw ahead. And apart from the fact that issue of governance, Nigerians are not excited. Well, they are not excited. But reasonably, the number that actually still came out in Edo State actually, excited me because I saw the
How? Okay, so I need to make some clarification. So in 2016 in Edo, the turnout was 32.7%. This year in 2020 in Edo, the turnout is reported at 24.5%. That's a drop of almost 10%. And that's saying basically that on average, about 25+ % of registered voters in Edo are deciding. Yes, politics and elections are a game of majority and a game of numbers, but when the number of those who are making such vital decisions is so small, it's like 1/4. That's something that has to be concerning to people. Just barely 25% of registered voters in Edo decided who's going to be in charge of Edo's affairs for the next 4 years. I think this has to go beyond us thinking of it as an apathetic situation. There's something going on in the psyche, I think, of the average Nigerian voter, of the average Nigerian electorate, and this thing has been in development for a number of years. throughout my time on radio, you'd have conversations and people would tell you, why do I need to go out? My vote doesn't count anyway. And we sort of find a way to minimize those conversations. But apparently, over the time and over the years, those beliefs and these ideas have seeped into the mind of the electorate, be it national or state elections. And this is where we're finding 25, I can't stress it enough, 25% of registered voters are the ones who made the decision.
Tolu, first, let me commend the good work you've been doing on radio over the years. I've listened to
Thank you.
programs, and I can say your passion for good governance is always there, even as you're speaking to me. But you see, we must be grateful to the people of Edo State that were able to even get 500,000 people to come out to vote. The reality of what is on ground in our nation is not good enough for even 300,000 people to come out to vote in a state. Things are terribly bad to me. Terribly bad in the system. Also for us, yeah, for me and you, or for you and I, because of the number is quite, alarming and discouraging. That just about 24% of the people actually came out, less than 1/3 of, the registered voters. That is not a good number, to decide the leadership of any state at any particular point in time. Because it's like a few, or the minority of the populace deciding, for the entire people of Edo State. But look, this is the reality we have to live with. There is possibility that we are going to record lower in the coming Edo State governorship election. Things are not looking good for us, but there is hope. That is why we believe that if we're able to get part of the things which I think we're going to discuss here, is we're able to reform our electoral process. INEC today, I was excited. INEC today, I think, invited companies all over the world, and I think they got about 40 to display, voting technology of, to demonstrate the use of their voter. Yeah, so they want to go the path, INEC wants to go the path of electronic voting, and they're calling for vendors all over the world to actually, demonstrate their capacity and probably what can suit the Nigerian, environment. And you see, those are the things going forward that are likely to, not too much, excite Nigerians, that people will definitely come out. As an organization, Center for Liberty Direction, and other organizations that I've also partnered with, we are looking at some of the things that can actually trigger that interest again for people to actually come out on election day. But it is really disheartening. For instance, look at what is going on all over the world. At a time when countries are looking for how to help their citizens, providing succor, providing palliatives, helping people, including giving free money to people. Our nation, Nigeria, at this point, is looking for how to exploit you and I, the common man, and everybody, with taxes, with fuel price hike, with hike in electricity tariff, and all of this. The aggregate of this is telling on the common man. I am sure when people see you on radio, when they hear you, when they see you on Instagram, I'm sure when they see you on social media, Tolu, you'll be receiving a lot of messages from people asking for support. 5,000, 10,000, 3,000. That is the reality of our nation. Sometimes people you never expected will actually call you and say, Tolu, please, I have not eaten in the last, my family, we have not eaten in the last 24 hours. That is the reality of this situation. Now, how many of these people do you want, to come out on election day to vote for when they are not sure?
And you know what you're saying just reminds me of all the conversations we have about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Nigerians will be able to demand better governance when they're able to have those basics. And I think I refer to radio a lot, but I remember one caller one day saying that good governance starts at breakfast. It starts at the morning when an average Nigerian will be able to eat that breakfast and start their day. But let's move on to other things. So there's another big part of the Edo Decides conversation that also has a national ripple effect, and that's the conversation around godfatherism. And it has become almost a constant in Nigerian politics. And it is to be noted that we're the ones who call it godfatherism, but across the world, you have situations where politicians sponsor the next generation or they sponsor a successor. We call it godfatherism. Other places call it sponsors. Other places call it somebody, you know, showing someone the ropes. But the way it has taken on a manifestation in Nigeria is why it has such a negative connotation. So in Edo Decides 2020, we had people trending Edo no be Lagos, and we know what that means. And then during the 2019 elections in Kwara State, governorship elections, they also they trended Atoye. That was the movement that we saw happening there. So how do we place this issue of godfatherism when it's something we know is in politics internationally, but has taken on a different ramification here in Nigeria? What do we do about it? Are we saying that all godfathers and godfatherism completely has to go, that there's no place for it in Nigerian politics?
Tolu, democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It is not a control system that should actually be dictated either by you or by an individual. When democracy is subjected to the dictate of an individual, it is no longer a democracy. It has lost its taste, its value, and its honor. That is why the issue of people trying to validate godfatherism, that a godfather somewhere produced a governor that performed and produced this that performed, is an aberration. It has no place in a democracy. It's at best self-serving, you know, and just to serve the interest of a few persons. That is not democracy. You see, democracy has its value when people are able, you know, to dictate their own, you know, leader who should govern them. And in Edo State, the people of Edo State are not going to have it. You see, there are certain states in Nigeria where this can never happen. Never happen. Edo State, Ondo State, Ekiti State, and a lot more states where this issue of godfatherism. I'm a partner about an organization called the Ibu Badger. Apparently, we're the only one that did a pre-election survey of the Edo governorship election. And we found out that the dominant issue ahead of that election was the issue of godfatherism. And we predicted the exact number of local governments that is likely to be won by PDP and they want to be won by APC.
APC.
Almost accurately the percentage of votes that will be won by each candidate, because we carry out what we call a phone survey. We're also going to do the same thing starting from maybe tomorrow or next tomorrow in Ondo State, to be able to also predict certain outcomes. The one essence is for people to be able to understand, you know, the thinking of voters. However, in the issue of Edo State, I think for us who are studying the art of politics, the science of politics, there is an interesting development which people must understand. There's the fact that certain things cannot thrive in certain plants, and you can't take the people for a ride. Edo State's own is unique in the sense that the man, Adams Oshiomhole, who has been accused of trying to entrench godfatherism, was one man that the media, CSOs, and everybody celebrated in this country for fighting
as a labor leader
to dislodge the stronghold of godfatherism in Edo State. Now, the people of Edo State are not stupid. These are enlightened people, one of the most enlightened people in our nation. Very courageous people with proven integrity, rich cultural heritage. And they only defer to their monarch, their obas, which they respect a lot. And therefore, you know, one man, simply because you believe that you succeeded by the support of the people in Edo State and share love, you know, to install a government after your tenure, and you now think that because you now have a problem with that city, you now think that you'll be able to tell it, and it's so ridiculous when you look at the Edo campaign, so ridiculous in the sense that you realize that everything that was used against the APC candidate were things said by Adams Oshiomhole himself. So,
True.
You see, it is, with due respect, Tolu, I know you live in Lagos, and I must say it as a Nigerian, that I will continue to question, you know, people who live in Lagos. that they've been at the mercy of a single godfather since 1999. And I believe that maybe one day the Atoye will come to Lagos and the people of Lagos will be able to breathe, because a godfather is actually kneeling on the neck of Lagosians. And I must be very serious about this. I think that I will never in my life, never validate the entrenchment of God. I'm an Ekiti person, I'm from Ekiti State. We don't believe, in anybody trying to, impose anything on us. Not even your own parent, not even your own father.
Okay.
Not talk about the
So
community. I'm with you.
So let me ask this. So Lagos features a lot in Nigerian politics. What happens in Lagos gets discussed in almost every state of the federation. And what we saw in Edo, as you said, seems to be an outright refusal, an outright rejection of somewhat, in a way, how politics in Lagos and in some other parts of the country are dealt. So do you think that this could be the beginning of a trend? And is it a trend that would be based on simply a rejection of godfatherism or godfathers, or a rejection also of governors who are not performing, who are still quote unquote anointed? Because you have a situation in Edo that's almost a storm in a teacup, in a way, if I would say, because according to some reports, Obaseki was performing. The people were quite happy with him to a certain extent, and somebody's coming to say, even though you're happy with him, I'm telling you to leave him. So if it had been a situation maybe that they were majority or majorly not happy with him, maybe we had seen something else. But in this kind of situation where they were, for the most part, happy with him and already did not like the comparisons with Lagos, you sort of created a situation where it was almost obvious what was going to happen. So do you think that this could lead to a trend elsewhere in Nigeria and eventually, as you said, maybe make its way to Lagos?
If there is one person, Tolu, who is regretting everything that is actually unfolding in our nation now, is the former governor of Lagos State, Ambode. He didn't give a fight. He didn't throw a punch. In student union times, we say he cowered. He didn't, then discharge his school. And I'm sure wherever he is now, he is regretting that he didn't actually, give this a worthy fight. It is not that this is the beginning of it. It has always been a conflict in Nigerian politics from the word go, not just in this decade, not in the Fourth Republic, also in the Third Republic, in the Second Republic, even in the Fourth Republic. When you look at it, you see an element of it. You see, man has the capacity to become greedy. Every human being is capable of lording things over another human being. That is why we have set rules. That is why we have such that there is no place for anarchy or one man dictating. That's why we have what we call rule of law, so that we don't have rule of men. So godfatherism will continue to be challenged, and a lot of people will continue to try their luck, because as long as, for instance, the system that is still entrenched, for instance, in Lagos State, people will still believe that, if so man can continue to do this in Lagos, we should be able to also entrench. And there is this idea
in other places.
Yes, there is this idea that I want to install my successor simply because it's for him to continue my project or probably to protect my looting. So these are some of the things that are instigating or allowing this issue of the sentiment of godfatherism to thrive. However, I think you and I will all have this responsibility to continue to support democracy to thrive. If we allow democracy to thrive, there will be less and less of the influence of this. Unfortunately, in part of your question, the issue of godfatherism didn't allow us to see a robust contest in Edo State. Because you see, Pastor Yamu of the APC is actually a grassroots man. But unfortunately, if he had known, he would have separated himself from probably Adams Oshiomhole, Ab initio. That would have been a contest of man to man in terms of ideas to idea and who can. But a lot of the people of Edo State voted based on pride and honor. And on that election day, every area where Obaseki has won election, you see people talking about we have defeated godfatherism. So it was one point fit all, situation whereby people said, look, we really want to protect the dignity and honor. And the campaign Edo Lagos actually, penetrated every aspect of that. And unfortunately, it validated that election. I would have loved to see a contestation of ideas. I would have loved to see more in terms of, what people are really looking out for. You see, the situation
But
is
you
so
know
bad today
that's not something that's just an Edo issue with this election. We've had so many conversations on ideology and having political parties and politicians who are representative of certain ideas. So even with that being said, in terms of the conversation around Edo, it's not just an Edo conversation. A lot more Nigerians want debates. They want conversations that are representative. Are you a big business person? Do you believe in little government interference? Do you believe that government needs to be involved in everything? Do you believe in healthcare for all? Whatever it means in our ramifications. And hopefully we'll get to the point where there's such a demand for a better quality of election, or even a better quality of governance overall, because that will lead to the elections as well. We'll start to get there. Please, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please send them in so we can take them as we continue this conversation. So we've laid a bit of the groundwork for the Edo Decides 2020. Let's get into another thing that has been a very big conversation piece. And I don't know, I know why, but I like to say I don't know why it has taken Nigeria so long to get on the train of independence candidacy. And it sort of falls under this conversation of godfatherism, as it may be. So we do know that there is the independent candidacy bill that has passed second reading. It's not the first time it has come up. It's not the first time there's so much conversation about it. And we have section 131 subsection C of the 1999 Constitution that stipulates that one can only contest for an elective office if one belongs to a political party. But the independent candidacy bill is attempting to change that. What do you think of this bill, and what do you think is the likelihood that maybe sometime in our future it's going to be passed? Because it would be an amendment to the Constitution, would have to pass at the National Assembly, would still have to go through the states as well. And this is the area in which most people in positions of authority, in positions of power, would not likely want to see a bill such as this to see the light of day. What's your thought about it?
Well, I think it's an important legislation, but like you said, we are likely to see a gang up, of the governors. This bill will sail through at the National Assembly level, but there is a possibility of these governors who work against judiciary, legislative autonomy, local government autonomy, for them to also work against it. In the sense that, they have always been looking for an opportunity, to have a total control of the subnational. Our governors are more or less like emperors in different states with a few exceptions. However, I think that it behoves on, especially the civil society, to support this, to scale through. The benefit of the independent candidature is actually at the local election, because it's going to be difficult for one man to be able to raise the kind of money to contest for presidential, even governorship, in our climate. But we're likely to see the benefits in the legislative arm and in local election. You see, one advantage of this that people don't actually look at is not just simply because of some of the challenges we have in the big parties, but even in the smaller parties. Some of these small parties are briefcase political parties belonging to individuals. So sometimes what you see is this. Let me give you an important example. I think currently in Bayelsa State, and I've seen in other states in the past, you will see that a small political party will go to the tribunal to challenge the outcome of election, probably also sponsored by a major party that has lost out, in order to have more people at the tribunal challenging, the outcome of that election. Now, you will also now see the government of the day, the winner of that election, whose mandate is being challenged. That one will go and procure maybe the national chairman of that party, while the opposition party will go and procure what do you call it, the candidate of
The
the party.
state.
So, for instance, in one single case, you will see the PDP, probably the PDP in control of the national chairman of that party, and the APC in control of the candidates, the candidate of that party at the governorship election. Independent candidates, we put an end to this. And also, we have also seen instances where somebody who is seen as, having the capacity to be able to make a significant inroad, sometimes some of those people will get the ticket of a party, and this ticket is withdrawn indirectly. A lot of things are done to undermine them. So, and again, one very important arrangement, let me say this, which is also one of the most important advantages of independent candidates, is the fact that the money that we spend on the election, at the primary election, have become scandalous. Once you have to pay delegates for you to be able to buy. The minimum today in Nigeria is 150,000 per delegate. So there are states where 1,000 delegates are given 150. That's the minimum. We have seen in this same country, especially in Kogi State some years ago in Kogi State, a candidate spends 500,000 naira per delegate. One spends 700,000 naira per delegate. That is the reality of our country. Now, the money spent on delegates in some political parties are enough. The resources, wasted are enough to help an independent candidate to make significant role in campaigning for a major election. So, for instance,
okay, so let me ask you. Let me ask you some. Sorry, before you go ahead, do you even think Nigerians themselves are ready for independent candidates? Because when you have these conversations with Nigerians, when they're on the roads, in the bars, wherever they have it, we're having these political conversations, and you ask them, they make it seem like this person is coming out of left field. We don't know who they are. We don't know who they belong to. We're not really, it doesn't seem that many people are in the mental space where they're ready to accept an independent candidate. So even if we pass the bill, it's still an uphill battle for those who do want to come into the political terrain, into running for elective office as independent. So do you think us as Nigerians ourselves are ready? Let the legislation be ready, let the bill be there, but are we at a mental space socially and economically and nationally to recognize and to be able to give adequate space and attention to independent candidates? Don't forget that you have to talk about these candidates being able to get attention on the media, these candidates being able to pay for space on newspapers or billboards as it may be. So it's a collective towards making sure that they adequately are as well have a platform to share their platform or share whatever their ideas may be.
Well, I think this independent candidate system is the future of our election. Let me explain. Even in the most advanced democracies, including the United States of America, in which big money individuals who come out to contest for election, they don't spend their money. You see the people of America, United States, the UK are the ones that are always financing
donors,
the super PACs, and the smaller people who contribute their money for people. Look at how much Joe Biden and Trump have raised in the last couple of years. So what we are practicing currently in Nigeria is not sustainable today. Not sustainable. So that's why I say independent candidature is the future of our politics, in the sense that people will become frustrated with it. Now, it is coming at a time where there is so much emphasis on electoral reform, and I is talking about, going the path of electronic platform, whereby we will be able to probably have electronic voting in order to eliminate the rigging of our election that used to happen, especially between the coalition at the world level and the local government level. Now, if we have electronic voting, for instance, going to eliminate a lot of it. So therefore, you can have your 20 million naira, and somebody will have 200 million naira, and you are able to use your 20 million naira in a strategic manner to win election at the Senate level, House of Representatives, forget the fact that, yeah, people are saying that it has become, because of money buying, vote buying, election have become so very expensive. But you see,
Yes.
Nigerians are not totally foolish. That was why I said that the validation of the Edo election was not vote buying. It wasn't the major factor. Yes, we had issues of vote buying, but it wasn't significant like we have seen in some elections. It was more about the people coming out, to fight for their honor and pride. Vote buying was secondary in Edo State. Yeah, people collected it because they just have to. The politician brought it and they collected it. But a lot of people were not really going to be persuaded by the election day money. The same thing will happen when you have a good candidate that is contesting for governorship election as an independent candidate, a good person that is contesting for election as a member of House of Representatives. And you will see why the independent candidacy will become the in thing in future. You know that we always have
Okay.
rancorous party primaries. So you will see a formidable candidate that is hedged out by a godfather. And the person will go and contest an independent candidate. And the people will vote for him. They are what we call the rebellious voting pattern. We have seen that in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Somebody is popular, but because he is not able to meet the terms of a clique, a godfather or a clique or some party leader, they will edge him out at the party primary. Now, instead of you going to another party to go and do another expensive primary, buy delegates, then you just exit and go and contest and as an independent candidate. And that gives you a good opportunity to be able to judiciously spend your money. So it is the future. It's the future of our democracy. Such that we are going to see more and more, including people who have the capacity to win elections, actually, going that path. Because currently,
go ahead, finish.
Yeah, because currently we don't have an entrenched political system like the way we have in the United States of America, where you have the Democrats and the Republicans. Currently, our politics is not ideological driven. So you are going to see the moment this law is passed and is allowed to sail through at least 2/3 of our states and becomes a ground norm, then we're going to see that it will become like a haven. It will offer a refuge, for those who have been.
Hello, Ariyo. Hello. Okay, so you're with me.
Yes.
So yes. I wanted to ask you to put a timeline to it, but as we both agree, this will really come under some kind of pressure at the state level, where we will have individuals who are trying their best to make sure it doesn't pass. But as we saw with Not Too Young to Run, if we can get a national consensus, a national conversation going, there can be pressure exerted at the state level on state houses of assembly or state house of assemblies, as it may be, and we can get it through if the people truly are behind this. So there's another part, you've mentioned it many times, but let's talk about electronic voting. We seem to make it like it's rocket science, like it's the hardest thing, and we need God to literally come down from his throne and show us how to do electronic voting. There have been conversations about its constitutionality, conversations about amending the conversation on it as well. But when it comes down to it, what are your thoughts surrounding electronic transmission of results and adding to that diaspora voting as well? We see situations where countries have their citizens abroad and they start the voting process earlier. They're part of those who are typically part of the early mail-in ballots or the early voters. So what do you think? Oh, I just lost Ariyo. Apologies there. I lost my guest. I lost the connection to my guest, so we'll try to get him back very quickly. But talking now about electronic voting, as it may be here in Nigeria, what does it really look like for us? Bringing in the diaspora as well, that's been part of the conversations. But so many things in Nigeria tend to take time. We'll talk and talk and talk about them for so long, and they take time to actually come to fruition. They take time to actually develop into what we want it to be. So let's see if I can get our guest back here so he can be part of the conversation and we can continue it. We have about less than 30 minutes, I think, thereabouts. Okay, just bear with me. Please don't forget, if you have any questions, please send them in. Let us know. If you have any comments, please also share those with us as well. Let's see what your thoughts are on this subject, as it may be electronic voting, as Nigeria is trying to make its way into, I guess maybe we'll say the 21st century at this point in time. It seems so surreal in some situations that we still have the type of voting that we do. And it's not to say that every single part of the country is at the same level or at the same pace, but it is, of course, something that we need to take into consideration. And the places where we can bring it in, let's bring it in. Let's make things a bit different. Let's make things easier for the people as well, for them to take part in the conversation. So let me see if I can get Ariyo to join us back and be part of the conversation. Once again, some technical issue, I think, on his side of things. So just bear with me. Oh my God, I haven't been in this situation in a very long time where I've sort of just had to talk it out. Let me see if he can connect. Sending the request to him now. So electronic voting, voting in general, I understand the apathy that many Nigerians have because of the situations that have come about, the violence and considering. Well, thank you so much. Great to have you back, Ariyo. So the question I was asking was on electronic voting, and particularly your thoughts on that, as well as even looking at the diaspora vote. There are countries that have the mail-in voting for those who are serving or living abroad, and they tend to be the early voters in election season. So what do you think about electronic voting? Why has it taken us so long to get it right, even though we haven't 100% as of now even gotten it right?
Well, Tolu, sorry to our viewers, and I think we just have to, I don't want to complain because I know it's long overdue. I don't want to complain in the sense that we are still in the trenches, battling the National Assembly to ensure that we have the electronic validation of, our electoral processes. The last National Assembly, last session, the 8th session, actually succeeded in making some far-reaching amendments to the Electoral Act. But, because the president was told that, look, the robust amendment made were enough to actually unseat you if we actually get a lot of transparency and accountability. So they foot dragged on it, and of course, at the last hour, the president came out and said, yeah, the document is okay now, but look, it's very close to the 2019 general election.
That was too close, yeah.
An undertaking, and, concern an undertaking that it will commence post the general election, but of this session refused. Was going to send a wrong signal that they were actually desperate, to have that. So the good news in all of this is that the president has made an undertaking to actually sign the electoral. That's one of the reasons why we are trying to put pressure currently on tomorrow morning, just tomorrow morning by 9 a.m. we are assembling.
Oh, Ariyo, we're having your connection is cutting, is breaking. So you're saying some things and we're missing it.
Can you hear
Okay,
me now?
continue. Let's try this. Yes, I can.
So tomorrow morning, around 9, at the National Assembly, with some of our young persons making demands for electoral, because the National Assembly resumes tomorrow. I'm happy with this program with you today. It's so timely because the National Assembly is going to resume tomorrow. And when I saw your invitation, I was actually happy that this is another opportunity to be able to speak, to our nation, to the people. We have to make this, a very, very important demand. So we're going to have people assembled in front of the National Assembly tomorrow, telling them that this is the most thought after legislation by the people of our dear nation. We want to have the Electoral Act passed as Electoral Act 2020 and reenacted. But one thing that I know you asked another question that in terms of the diaspora voting. This is very important. And I think we just have to start one at a time, if possible, so that we don't rush. Probably we should test it.
Overwhelm ourselves.
Absolutely. So that, because look, a lot of things can happen. We don't have the right infrastructure to be able to do certain things, because we must be able to get the conduct of election reasonably entrenched in our system, conduct our elections in a way that even the international community will applaud it as meeting what we call global standard, not the minimum standard, but the real global standard. Now, it is when we are able to get to that level that we can actually be talking about diaspora voting. Because a lot of things will go wrong, a lot of things will be manipulated, except if there is a secured website through which people can vote, except that people can actually mail in, their votes, and it will not be tampered at the post office, postal agency. So there are a lot of things involved in all of this. The countries that are doing this, when you look at the processes, one thing is very important: data. So people must understand one very thing that is something that's very tricky in all of this. We cannot do diaspora voting without becoming a data-driven country. Data is very, very strategic to diaspora voting. So we must be able to have a full documentation of citizens within and citizens abroad.
Citizens outside, yeah.
The minimum stature for us to do what we call diaspora voting. So if we don't have our data, we will only be mouthing it. It is practically impossible for us to do diaspora voting. So basically, that should be your responsibility and my responsibility to start talking about having our data, firm up, package for us to be able to do this and many other things that are important.
Okay, so there is a place I want us to definitely get to, and I'll wrap up with recommendations that you have. So we've talked about making sure that data of citizens in and outside of Nigeria is well put together, and that's a conversation that is just beyond elections. We haven't had a census in how long? Every time you mention census, it seems to be one of the most controversial words that you can mention in national discourse. It becomes such a rancorous conversation that the idea behind it gets lost. How does a country such as Nigeria even plan for the future, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, for generations unborn, if we're so stuck with how many are we? If you ask somebody, someone will tell you we're 150 million. Somebody else will tell you we're 200 million. Somebody else will tell you we're 200 million plus. The international community has their way of calculating, but where is our own data? And I really like the fact that you touched on that. But I think something else that you touched on earlier also involves the cost, the fees. And that is how monetized our governance, our government, our electoral system, or the conversations around elections happen to be. So in Edo, and especially also with Ondo that's coming up, PDP governorship aspirants have been taxed 21 million naira for nomination forms. In the APC, they paid about 22.5 million naira for nomination forms. For APC, women and persons with disabilities would pay 50%, while for PDP, women would pay just 1 million. So that's completely less than half of the fee. In terms of the high cost of even just getting nomination forms, what do you think that says about our democracy and how difficult it may be for the best of us to get to lead the rest of us?
Tolu, is because we are operating a system where the stakeholders are truthful to themselves about the reality of the financial haste that is taking place in government. It's still in the loot. The reality of governance in our nation, that the moment you become a governor, automatically you are a billionaire in today's Nigeria. If it is about the common man, there is no way a reasonable politician. It is wicked. It is unconscionable. It's unfortunate that President Buhari did not sign the amendment made by the 989. That has been taken care of. And I think in that amendment, I think a governor cannot pay more than 5 million naira nomination form. I think
has a cap, yeah.
Yes, the senator, for Senate, I think not above 3 million or 2.5, then House of Rep between 1.5 or 2 million. And, just like that. But look, when you fix nomination form, and for some of those political parties who lack the idea on how to be competitive and how to be able to make money as a political party because they prioritize the issue of dues payment. I don't know why you have a political party and you don't, tax your members to pay dues monthly or year.
Oh, Ariyo, your connection is really bad. We're struggling to hear you. It keeps coming and going. Hello? Okay, are you back? So we're having some connection issues. Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Now, when you look at the political parties, they don't prioritize the issue of payment of dues. These political parties don't think out of the box on how to make money. What are the things that they can do? Why can't they learn from other clients? How are they surviving? How are they coping? We are not the first country to play party politics. Others are
Yeah.
surviving. Why is our so unreasonable? So they don't want to learn. So for these political parties, they believe that the harvest time is when there is an election.
Elections
So
are
during
coming.
this election, yes, so they propel and they allow a lot of people to buy forms. Imagine 21 million naira. For instance, in Ondo State, the PDP sold forms to more than, I think, 10 aspirants. Now, at 21 million naira or thereabouts, that's, over 200 million. The
Yeah.
same thing, the APC, 20 something million. Probably a lot of more than 10 people also bought forms in APC. Look at the same thing for Edo State, for Kogi State, for Bayelsa. These things are not sustainable. So, but one thing I am not happy about is the issue of nomination for women. It should be totally eliminated. So I've had this conversation from some feminists who believe that total removal of money is not good enough for women, that it doesn't make them competitive in a way. But look, one thing we must accept that reality. For a reason, we had the Beijing conference. For a reason, we have. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. For a reason, we had the affirmation. For a reason, people have been
Affirmative
advocating
action.
that we. Yes, the affirmative action. For a reason, people have been, advocating for more women, participation in our politics. Right from when I was in the university, March 8, I write about the need for us to have more women in
So,
government.
so what do
And
you think it should be? Do we have to write it into legislation that a certain percentage of seats from political parties, or however we want to write it, must go to women? How do you think it can be, rather than just simply making the forms free? Because even if they make the forms free, we know there's still very little or a limited number of women that will come out. So how should it be to correct this situation and increase women's participation in governance, in getting elected, in sitting in the National Assembly and being there when rules and laws are made that affect our lives on a daily basis? We saw what happened with the Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill. It has basically disappeared now. And it's not to say that there are not women in Nigeria's National Assembly now, but we are also at the lowest numbers we've had in a very, very long time. So does the Electoral Act or the reformations of around the electoral process in Nigeria, must we legislate a number?
Tolu, recently, I think a few days ago, a particular African country, I think Kenya, this Chief Justice of that state just asked the president to dissolve the parliament because of the lower representation of women, which did
Of
not
women.
meet the constitutional requirements, for women representation. So it must be deliberate that we must have that number of women representation in the parliament of that country. If it means for us to put it in our laws, we have to put it. For instance, for us as in terms of guaranteeing more women involvement, we've recommended that in the delegates,
Your connection.
can you get me?
I can hear you, but the connection is really breaking. It's a bit of a struggle. Okay, we'll try to wrap things up so that okay. So the connection is really
Hello?
making us struggle. And if you are still with us, we're having the hello. I can hear you, but you're sort of frozen in time on the screen. Ariyo, can you hear me? Okay, go ahead. Let's just let's start wrapping things up. Go ahead, Ariyo. Oh, then there we go. Connection again. Hello.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. So you wanted to say you were finishing your statement on women's participation, so we can get to the recommendations you have.
Yeah, in our recommendation for the electoral amendment, our memorandum, we made it very clear that in electing the delegate for the political party at every, I think, ward level, that there be at least
At least, hello?
80 so that we can have every one.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, we missed that part, that every political party should have at least how many?
Yeah, at least 2 female in every ward represented, as delegates. We should also have at
Okay.
least 1 person from the physically challenged, so that we have inclusion and get everybody along. Where we're
And
making difference,
representation.
yes, we want to have an inclusive delegate system so that our women are always part of every, process, and have their say in governance. I mean, electing candidates of all the political parties. So the constitutional review is also coming. We are also going to engage this process. I was also part of a review done by the National Democratic Institute, in which they are also trying to make some far-reaching recommendations about the need to have more,
Okay.
women represented adequately in governance. And I think,
Okay.
like in our proposal, in our memorandum to the National Assembly, we made it very clear that we adopt as an organization, that we adopt, the position of NDI, the recommendation by NDI on women inclusion in politics, and we will be standing side by side with NDI to pursue this, by the time the process for this amendment, commences in full gear. So we
Okay.
believe that
I
we do
think
have.
let's end this part there, because Instagram will soon give us timing that we need to leave. But I think it's also notable that we all need to remember that as a country that needs to make economic progress in health indices, progress in education indices, unless we bring more women to the table, be it at the political table, be it at the economic table, we will not make progress. That's just the facts. That's what the data supports. That's what the evidence supports. That's what world global evidence supports. Women need to be brought to the table, and not just gain a seat, but they need to be able to make decisions and be part of the decision-making process. And that is how true prosperity and true progress starts. So if we're here and we're not including women, then we are really just peddling and treading water. So we have to start getting ready to wrap up, because Instagram will give us, will try to kick us out at any time. But I want us to wrap up with key recommendations. So we've had a conversation about including women. We've talked about a cap on the money as well, around the monetization of our elections and how it may be. But I also want to bring in something that Bishop Matthew Kuka said, and he said this after the 2019 elections. EU observers, there was roundtable, there were a lot of comments, and what they said is basically that regardless of technical and legal measures and adoption and reforming the law, that there's also a moral crisis, that there is a moral situation that's involved in what's going on with our election. So I want you to comment on that. And he said that the repeated electoral crisis are merely symptoms of a much deeper moral crisis. So comment on that and give us your top 3 recommendations so we can make sure we beat Instagram.
Yeah, well, this is very true. For instance, there was a point in time in our dear nation where people will be passing by and they see somebody selling maybe a yam by the roadside, and the person will write the prices of these commodities are written, and people will put down the money and take these things away, and the persons who sells, the seller will come and meet, the money.
Their money.
Yes, so that means that we really have credibility problem, and that is why our votes don't count. That's why people are trying to rig elections. So basically, I believe that it's also very important that it's not just enough for us to go the path of technology, but we also have to change our attitude, our orientation, towards election and towards governance. So basically, my recommendation would be that all Nigerians must support.
All right, so let's just see if we can get technology to work with us. Okay, go ahead. We can hear you. Oh, it's cut.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, that also it's very important that all of us must work together for us to have an enduring. We have a lot of women who have the capacity to be able to support our nation to excel. It's because we're not giving them that wonderful opportunity. So if we have more women involved, I support it. Yeah, I support inclusion of women and people with disability for them to back. And thirdly, which is the most important to me, is the fact that the best of our nation are in the fringes. Gold is not found on the surface. You have to dig in. So the best of our nation are in the rural area. The government must prioritize the recruitment for us to look for the best of our nation. They are not in palaces, they are not in government houses. Go and see nations that have excelled. They always look for great leaders from different times. And even the Almighty God, when the Holy David, Gideon, all of these people, they were searched out, either in the bushes or in the farms or doing something. Not God don't look for people in palaces, but people who have been trained, in a very different location. So there are people, for instance, Tolu will have been burning candles, reading books, preparing ourselves all our life. And you go and look for people, not people who are actually flaunting their shoes, who are flaunting their barbariga, milling around government. But what about those who have spent their time reading, looking for solutions, right? Not trying to proffer solutions. Those are the people that seek for a nation to develop. Those people milling around government, the corridors of power, so this is one thing that every government that wants to succeed in Nigeria must prioritize, and that's one thing that is missing in every level of government in Nigeria. We don't have
so
government. When we get them, we solve problems are many.
So I said we were done, but I realized that we glossed over an area. We glossed over an area that's really vital to this conversation, and that's security and violence. And we have elections that year in and year out, if they're off cycle, if they're on cycle elections, have some element of violence involved in them. We knew in 2019 that there were INEC officials that were kidnapped and threatened. We've heard that. And we rarely also see a lot of people brought to justice for committing electoral offenses or for threatening or committing violence when it comes to the elections. And one of the very big things that scares voters is violence. But then it's not just violence from thugs or political party followers. There's also, in some points, allegations of state-sponsored or complicity from the state actors when it comes to violence or security. So how do we address that? Because if people do not feel that the government can protect them, regardless of what side they want to vote for, regardless of what stronghold this local government is or whose local government it belongs to. People will not make their way out to vote. And security is such a massive conversation piece when it comes to elections in Nigeria. So I definitely wanted to touch on that. So if you give me 2 or 3 sentences on how we address the security situation, and that falls in government's hands. They're the ones who can deploy 20,000 police. They're the ones who can deploy 30,000 police. They're the ones who can deploy dogs and deploy tanks when it comes to elections. And when you sort of militarize your elections, you send a message to the people as well.
Tolu, we need a complete overhauling of our security architecture as a nation. I don't know where to start. We can't patch what we have currently. Intelligence has failed. Surveillance is not working. They are not doing intelligence. They are not doing surveillance. For instance, a governor cannot survey, do a surveillance of his own state. You have to collect
approval, permission.
Of the NSA. It's totally unreasonable. You are a governor over the living and non-living human and plants in your state. Be able to survey, to do a surveillance of your state, to know people who are coming through the back door. And look, the only solution to this is not a centralized arrangement. We have to restructure Nigeria. I've been telling my people in the northern part of this country, they don't want to believe it. Now look at the way security is eating in every part of the north. You can't make it over. We must restructure Nigeria. Every state be able to take a full responsibility of the security in its own domain. It is when it becomes so difficult for you that you're able to send something like the soldiers to be able to complement you. Centralizing security or policing cannot work for our dear nation, Nigeria. So we continue to be in this. There is no solution I'm going to offer to you. I'm not going to tell you that they're going to buy more choppers. It will still not work because security is local. Security is local. People must be involved. There must be that confidence, in the policing. People must be able to identify the spots and have conversation on how to lead some of this thing involved. So you can't bring an Hausa DPO to Ekiti and you think it's going to be able, to perform creditably, or take an Ekiti man to Kano, and you think the communities will be able to relate with him perfectly. It's not going to work. That's what we practice in Nigeria. We have to change our security architecture and overhaul everything. It's very fundamental. And also, we are also not doing enough in terms of what we're spending on security. And our nation is a poor nation, very poor in terms of everything we generate in a year is not up to what 3 rich guys in America generate in a year. So where are we as a nation? As in 3 or 4 guys in America can simply finance our nation. Finance is totally. So we're a very poor nation simply because our wealth has been managed. But we're a nation that is overwhelmingly blessed. We are well blessed by the Almighty God. We have everything to excel. So it is a complete overhauling of Nigeria, a restructuring of Nigeria. It is when we are able to compete favorably and we are able to guarantee the security of. We have a lot of ungoverned spaces and territories all over Nigeria. That's part of the thing that's also affecting the conduct of elections. These are the things that is making it difficult. For instance, believe me sincerely, it's difficult for you today to travel by road even from Lagos to Indo or to Indo. You will think twice. For you to travel by road from Lagos to Abuja. And these are traveling that should be a product of fun and people should be able to enjoy. We don't have a rail system that works. Look at what is going on. Katsina is the home state of the president. The governor came out and confessed that 9 of the local governments in Katsina are under the control of the bandits. Today, we've not heard if they succeeded in dislodging this bandit. Governor Zulum of Borno State, twice in less than 2 weeks or in less than a week,
has been attacked.
Escaped, So what are we talking about? Now look at what is happening to Governor Zulu. Do you know that it's enough to send voter apathy to cause voter apathy in Ondo State, in another part, in every other part? If a rich man is not safe in Nigeria, how much more the poor man? Look at kidnapping in Nigeria. So it's good we're having this conversation because you see there is no shortcut to security. Security is a serious business. It requires the totality of investment. Security is a massive investment. It is not a piece rate. It's not done the way we are doing it in Nigeria. And these leaders are not listening. Nigerians are able to demand for good governance. We need better leaders who understand time, seasons, who knows what security means, who understand how a nation will work. These are the kind of things we want to do. You have traveled, you've seen it, and that look, Nigeria, we can't just, govern ourselves. It's painful. It's painful.
It is painful, and it is a journey. And we started off talking about Nigeria hitting 60 years in 2 days, I think it is. Oh, no. Okay, 3 days. Today is Monday. On Thursday is going to be October the 1st, and the country will be 60 years old. So while there are many painful things happening, I think we need to realize it's a journey. And we don't have to do it the same way somebody else gained independence. There's technology at play. We can deploy technology in so many areas, for education, for health, for our elections, for security. It simply requires those who are willing to make the changes, those who are willing to make the sacrifices, and it requires a top-down and a down-top approach. Ariyo-Dare, Atoye, I want to say a very big thank you on behalf of EIE for you joining us for Call of Duty today. We very much appreciate your time and your thoughts on Edo Decides, and of course, what kind of electoral reforms are we actually looking for? We've talked about security, women's participation, money involved in our elections as well, talking about godfatherism as well. So a bit of as much of the conversation around elections as we could take. But again, let me say a very big thank you from Enough is Enough Nigeria. Thank you so much, Ariyo, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, too.
We look forward to having more of these conversations. Ondo is just a few days away. Reportedly, election or sensitive materials will start arriving in Ondo by the weekend, and elections should be coming up upper weekend. And so these off-cycle elections, I think they're a way for us to see what is working and what isn't working. And even though we can't have off-cycle elections for everybody, those states that we end up having the off-cycle elections, we tend to use them sometimes as guinea pigs. So we do hope that lessons learned from Edo will be put into place lessons learned in Edo will be put into place in Ondo, and we'll see a better election. We hope we'll see better turnout and voter participation as well. So I'm going to say good night, and thank you once again on behalf of EIE. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us and who participated in this Call of Duty. Don't forget to follow EIE on Instagram. Also follow them on Twitter at EIE Nigeria as well. Doing good work out there, having the conversations we need to have. This has been another edition of Call of Duty. My name is Tolu at Adeleru-Balogun. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Tolu AB. I look forward to having more national conversations with you. And until next time, have a pleasant night, everybody. And ahead of October 1st, happy independence, Nigeria. Have a good night.